I love creativity. Since I was a very small child, I remember discovering books that took me to worlds I could never imagine. And then suddenly I imagined my own, and it became even more fun. And then I could go deeper and deeper into these stories. And because of that, I always love talking to storytellers. I have one with me today, a local author, LMG Wilson. Welcome, Lisa, to the show.
Thank you, Mark. I'm excited to be here.
I'm really excited. I've known you for a few years. I've had a chance to sample your writing. I'm very happy to see that you've come to the point of publication now, finally, with Of
Yes.
Mists and Bogs. Tell me what this story is about. I technically, behind the scenes, I know what the story is about. But how do you want to describe this wonderful story?
Of Mists and Bogs is a spy fantasy novella where the main character doesn't know who to trust. They're trapped in a situation not quite of their own doing, and it's just an examination of the intricacies of human dynamics and the way that people sort of suspect everyone around them when they don't have any close allies, and that sort of isolated sensation. And then, of course, what do you do when you're in that kind of a position? And it's a lot of fun. And of course, there's a massive part of the book is about tea, which is always the fun thing to talk about when people see the cover and of Mists and Bogs, Intrigue, Espionage, and tea. It's always a little odd to see that paired there, but it's a lot of fun. And it was really nice to be able to incorporate that into a sort of light fantasy setting.
So it is a delightful setting. It is a full setting. Even though we're fairly narrowly focused on a particular area, you get
Yes.
a really good sense of the rest of the world. How did the rest of the world develop when you were focused on the story?
I I try to write like all my books are the iceberg. And there's other people out there who've come up with like the iceberg theory where the whole book is the giant iceberg, but you only ever really see like the tip of it. And for me, a lot of the support structure for the existing world has to be all this other work that the reader may not see all of the details. So it's, the tea trade and the history of the city and the characters and their pasts and just adding like a toe into the little like pond of where they come from and their histories and just giving the reader a taste of that. It lets me sort of build in the background. So I've got so much to refer to and it makes them feel that much more real. Like they're real people that have real histories and there's real, depth to the location because it's a place. It's not just something that's got a name to it.
Well, and even further to that, one of the most really cool things that you've added on to this world is a full map of the
The
area.
map.
The map.
The map was the map's a blast. I had so much fun making the map and I had so much fun creating the map and coming up with the ideas because there's the function of physically making the map, which I'm not a traditional artist, so I used some software, let me tell you. And but there's a depth to it that's about having that history and knowing where everything is, and the functional part of I needed to know where these locations were in relation to other locations because I was getting a little lost as the author. I could only imagine what the reader would be getting into. So I started creating it. I started with Yonaba, which is where the story takes place in this swamp in the middle of a continent. And it basically bisects the continent. So all trade is controlled by Yonaba. And because of that, I then had to build the continent around it and started thinking, where are these trade routes actually going? How would they navigate? Why wouldn't they use the ocean onto the north or the south? And it made for me a very stable, functional base where I could launch off of for other interesting notes of places in the world and other characters and other histories. But it was so much fun to do. Maybe a little distracted by making a massive map, maybe, but I loved it. And I was so happy that I could then take it, make it something that I could reference, and then give it to the reader so they could reference it. So that when you see the name of the northern nation, Cyrdanor, you can open up the map page and see it there and actually reference it and go, oh, wow, it's not that far away. It's close enough that it can be a problem or that there's actual impact from what's going on. So that was a really fun part.
Is this inspired at all by, say, what Tolkien did? Because that was one of my earliest experiences of having this whole map that told me that there was a big world out there, even if we never touched in the story. But it was a really interesting companion, and I can't help but compare.
It's definitely something I've always been drawn to books that have maps and images and that sort of a thing. I actually went more towards The Hobbit than Lord of the Rings. And part of that was because I was starting with a smaller region. And I know that The Hobbit has a very limited, smaller map that is beautiful, simple, straightforward, so much fun. But it's a great way to model off of these fantasy worlds. If you can see where these things are, which is what I would do, and read about the Lonely Mountain, go, where is that in connection to the Shire? I want to know how far did they travel? Where did they go? What did they see along the way? Was it a winding path or was it direct? And these maps give that extra sort of, maybe not tactile, but that more visceral response of I can see the journey, not just know it. And I love that. So a little bit of inspiration there where I try and jump off of that diving board that was already there for me. So that was nice.
And similar to Tolkien, too, you have hints and suggestions of vast histories and all these other things going on. I believe it's called the dead tree of life, for example, which is sort of a phrase which itself evokes all kinds of possibilities.
It's one of those, I think that might actually be part of, so the story, to slightly tangent a little bit, the story came from writing prompts. And one of the writing prompts was the world tree had withered to death. And it was a phrase, I did like a random phrase generator to sort of give me a list of different prompts to pick from. And then, because it was silly, just pick a bunch of random ones and see what kind of I could make from it. And that sort of gave me something very different to work with. And suddenly I'm working with this dead tree that sort of, it's a world tree. Well, world trees typically are, life trees about the existence of life itself, for a whole culture, for a religion. And I thought, well, what if, you're worshiping a dead tree that used to be alive? And then, of course, it's in a bog and there's a swamp and there's a lot of these sort of images of death and life that are kind of at odds, but also working together in a weird symbiotic way, which you see in somewhere like a swamp where it's very decaying and all that, which made a lot of fun to sort of mimic in the story itself. And, I like coming up with these these kind of like strange places and to building on them with these little unique elements.
Is that how the story evolved, from taking different random elements and combining them together until something worked?
Yeah, I write a lot of short stories. I'm part of a large community online where we used to challenge ourselves with very restrictive writing prompts. You'd be given a word, a subject, or a phrase of dialogue, and you'd have to craft a 500-word story from it. And this was sort of a self-prompt. I have a friend gifted me a portion of a story creation kit, and it's a bunch of cards that you basically flip out and you get a couple of prompts. And mine were spy, high fantasy, the world tree had withered to death, and it takes place in a swamp. And it has the title of Mists involved at some point.
Wow.
And also tea. And from there, I was like, okay, I could take one or two of these elements and craft something pretty generic or a little bit more, less restrictive. But I really like the idea of trying to incorporate all these things that don't really feel like they fit and make them work together, make them sing. And it was a lot of fun to kind of work with that. And I really like taking restrictive writing prompts and building on them. I hadn't meant to build 30,000 words, but, I'm not disappointed.
Well, and beyond just writing it, you've gone all the way to publication. And I know you were very involved in every step of this as well, from cover design to color, everything.
Oh, yeah. It started off with the typical, you write the book, you go through your beta reading with lots of different beta readers and writing groups and that sort of thing, as you know. And then you get to your editing, which I did hire an editor for because I'm aware of my weaknesses. And one of them is editing. But then you're dealing with your marketing, your cover design, your art, internal art, like the map that I made. And a lot of that was me figuring what I wanted. I wanted what kind of cover I was interested in having for the book. And I started playing around in software. And again, I'm not a traditional artist. So for me, it's a lot of copying and pasting and finding Creative Commons assets that I can use. And I ended up really liking the cover that I sort of mocked up before I approached an artist. And then I also looked at the cost of hiring an artist and realized it was a little outside of my price range for now. So I went ahead with it and did my own layout. I have some experience in the publishing industry, so making the ebook, designing the interior, a lot of the traditional crafting of a book is sort of second nature to me now. And it allowed me to kind of take control of most of the process, which is really gratifying to be able to do, to say, like, I made like 90% of this is just me. And I love working with other industry professionals. It's always fantastic when you can find people to collaborate with, but it's really satisfying too to say, this is mine. I put that stamp on there and go, I made a damn good product. It feels good.
And you decided to publish softcover and hardcover too.
That's definitely, that was for me. Originally, it was very much for me. I love having a softcover book. I published a children's book in 2023, and that was in softcover. It couldn't be in hardcover because it was quite short. And I was delighted to find out of Mists and Bogs was the right length to publish in hardcover, because there is nothing like a nice hardcover book on your shelf. And having the spine and the feel of it, it feels good. And it feels good to see your name on a hardcover book. Very much. So I was excited that I could do that. It did mean laying out the book again, redesigning the cover for a different size, because I wanted it to not just be the same book, but hardcover. So it's double the work, but I enjoy the work. So I'm a crafter in that sense. I really love crafting a beautiful thing, and I'm really proud with how it turned out.
What was it like that first time you opened up the box and there's your book in reality, physically there in front of you?
I didn't scream so much, but I definitely made a sound, something like an animal squeal, like, oh my God. It feels fantastic because it's all of these hours, this, like the toiling you go through of revisions and a lot of second guessing what you're working on and taking quite a critical look at the craft that you put into it, and seeing it actually done is so good. And the first time I opened the book, it was wonderful until I realized there was a bunch of mistakes. And then you start reading your proof copy and you find typos and layout problems. And, oh, the cover is slightly misaligned and that's not the color I thought it was. But it's still so satisfying to hold it physically in your hand. This is not just something that I wrote down on a notepad. This is something that I made, and not only that I made, but I can now share with other people in a pretty easy way. And it's so satisfying.
I'd love to ask more questions about that, but I want to veer back to the story itself.
Of course.
You have a fantasy universe, and one of the things about a fantasy universe is technically anything is possible in a fantasy universe. You have magic, you have a society. How did you come about with determining how that was going to work? Did you set yourself a couple of rules? Was this another place where you had strict rules you wanted to follow? Or was it discovery where you kind of went, I needed to do this, therefore magic does this?
I think it starts a little bit with, I need to do this, then have the magic do that. But I always then, like critiquing, I come back at it and try to make sure that it is something that's not just pasted on the world. And it's not just like, oh, they can also do this and then moving on. I want it to feel like it's an integral part. Now, I know of Mists and Bogs hasn't touched too much on the magical elements. We have mentions of mud drakes and walking trees and face changing, and that sort of feels a little bit like it's added to the intrigue of it. But for me, which maybe the reader may not see all of it, it's ingrained into the culture of the characters in the book. These are aspects that are accepted as not only normal, but part of their culture and part of their everyday life. You don't leave Yonaba at night because there's trees walking around that might eat you. It's just not safe. It's seen as very not necessarily mundane, but it's expected. It's not super fantastical to the people in the book. And I think whenever I approach magic systems or science fiction that is very different from what we accept, I don't approach it from the sense that it is mystical or fantastical to the people in the book, that it is a part of their lives, and making it feel integral to their lives is an important part of any kind of magic system. It makes it feel a little bit more realistic too. And unless they're encountering it for the first time, it should just be a part of their world.
And, magic, intrigue, espionage, there's a lot of stuff going on here. Was there one particular aspect you're really drawn to more than the other? Like, did you look for the espionage or the intrigue part more, or was it kind of all one big package you had to write?
I think the spycraft, the espionage is what drew me in. It's such you don't see a lot of spycraft in fantastical worlds. That feels a very, not necessarily futuristic, but it feels much more modern, I think, for a lot of writing. Thrillers are typically written either, in the 19th or 20th century, and we're not looking at them as much in a historical context. And I think it's a lot of fun to see how you can take characters and approach them with these human elements. Like, it's all about people and interactions, even if the people that aren't interacting are people. It's very much about the espionage, the reading people, the understanding how they react to different cues. And it's something that I think everyone can empathize with to a degree. You may not be a spy yourself, but you can still recognize that sensation of being worried about what other people might be thinking, worried about what other people might do, and hitting on those things that really allow the reader to empathize and sort of feel like they're a part of the story because they've shared those kind of emotions. The espionage of that was so much fun for me to dive into and kind of explore this paranoia that you have to have on at all times. That maybe a little extreme. I mean, I hope nobody feels that paranoid all the time, but it was a lot of fun to sort of play with and see where do these thoughts come from, what triggers these sorts of thoughts and reactions, and of course, what do you do then?
I love the story. I'm definitely biased because I got a chance to look at it early, but it is a very, very well crafted story.
Oh, thank you.
One of the things that I've asked you personally, and now I'm going to embarrass you by asking it here now.
No.
You do create the iceberg of these beautiful worlds that have so much potential. And I want to know the rest of the story. I want to know all the different stories. Has this inspired you to continue in this universe, or do you want to put it aside for a while, work on other things, and then maybe return to this?
It's funny. This was actually the project that was to keep me busy while I had readers working on something else. So this was one of those projects that I was working on while something else was cooking in the corner. So the idea that there's more, yes, it feels very much that this book is a question that isn't entirely answered. Now, I love books that don't tie up all the knots. I don't want everything neat and tidy at the end. I don't need an epilogue to tell me, what happened 20 years later, that everything was great and honky-dory and we're all good. Life isn't like that. Not everything is tied into a bow. So if I have a story that is completely, all the loose ends are discovered and found out and resolved, it feels fabricated to me. And I love my stories to feel as natural and as plausible as possible, even if it, has dragons or crazy walking trees in it. So this does have the potential for some questions to be answered. Other questions, not all. I'm never going to answer every question. But I think I would like to revisit this universe, particularly because I made this very large map with lots of locations that I would love to take my character to. I have little stories in mind for different places on it, and part of me is kicking myself because there's a project that's been backburned that I need to return to. Well, this one is, dominating a little bit more time than I thought, but it's still satisfying to know that you can take that story and do a little bit more with it. And the world is full enough to have more than just one story. That's what we want, right? Stories that can grow and evolve and change and be picked up and do more.
A very successful distraction, for good and for ill.
Very, very much so, yes.
You've got the physical book out. You've had a chance to have it shown at a couple of stores. You've been allowed to the recent readers event that was in the city.
Yes, Pages in the Province. It was fantastic.
Yeah, which I'm very happy to have seen. It was sad to miss it, unfortunately. But I've heard you said that, you might want to make an audiobook of this as well. Is that possible?
Definitely. It comes down to a question of my time. Which there never seems to be enough of it. I definitely want to make this and my previous book into an audiobook. I think I had people at Pages in the Province that were asking about it. They went, "Oh, when's the audiobook coming out?" I'm going, "Oh gosh, here comes the pressure. I guess I got to get on that audiobook now." And I'm a narrator, so I've typically done more voice acting for character work. But I do narrate my own short stories on YouTube. And I think this is a nice length to do as an audiobook because it's not 200,000 words. We're looking at a nice solid 30K. I can bring that to readers fairly quickly, I hope. It's been a while since I've done a full book, so it'd be nice to work on it. And I think if the author is capable of narrating and capable of doing a lot of the work that goes into it, I definitely want to hear the author's take on the world. And I hope that I can bring enough character and enough life to the story through narrating. At least as much as I hope I brought through with the writing of it. So that's my hope. I'm planning it as a project for next year that, fingers crossed, will be out next year.
Well,
but that's a big giant to be determined.
And I'm always encouraging more. So I'm hoping at the same time we have the announcement of the next 7 books in the series and so forth. But that's just pressure from someone who loved the story so much. You have had the chance to get out and show people the book, and hopefully you've had some very positive response. You've got an event coming up soon, actually, as well.
I do. I'm going to be doing a reading at the Right Cup in St. John. On November 20, I want to make sure I say the right date. November 29th, yes. From 1 till 3, I'll be doing a signing, and then around 2 o'clock, I will be doing a reading from of Mists and Bogs, which is exciting. I did a public reading from my children's book at the Indie Author Fair that was at the library last year. I think it was last October. And I had a blast. It was so much fun. I was very nervous, but it was just great to see people engaged and to read the book out loud. So I'm very excited to do it again, but with more mature audience material. And the Right Cup is fantastic that they're going to be hosting it. They have my books there available for sale. So it's a perfect storm of getting me in there, hopefully sign some books and meet some people and definitely read and maybe get a chance to talk more about fiction because I kind of love talking about it.
Well, that's good for me for the interview to definitely talk more fiction.
Yeah, there we go.
Aside from the Right Cup, where else can we find your book?
Right now, Dog-Eared Books has it, and that is in Oromocto. I believe right now they're actually moving locations, so it might be a couple of days before they get everything all set up at their new store location. I still think it's on Restigouche Road, though. But other than that, it's available online. I have it in print on demand from Amazon, and you can get the ebook at the Kindle store. And yeah, I'm trying to reach out to other retailers to get involved. I have been looking at Ingram as well to see if I can get it more wide distribution. But right now it's relatively small, but I'm hoping that more reviews and more engagement with readers will help it grow because that's just the lifeblood of being an author. You want people to read your books and then talk about your books.
So anybody who has read Lisa's book, please make sure to make your positive comments known and your ratings known as well.
Yes, we love hearing about it.
Is there a place online to follow the work that you're doing or to find out where all of your stuff is coming out or where you're going to be?
Oh, I'm all on everywhere. I keep a fairly up-to-date Facebook page, LMG Wilson, pretty sure it's just LMG Wilson. Let me just double check that. But I'm on X as well under a very different name, Upset Apple Cart. There's also Instagram, again, LMG Wilson, but the big one is going to be my website, lmgwilson.com. From there, you can link to all my social medias. And I also have a Patreon where I'm really lucky to be able to share my process with people that are supporting me and that are able to kind of see the behind the scenes, you know, the troubles that you go through, the little small obstacles, the lovely bouts of imposter syndrome that come up from time to time. And it encourages me to keep going. And it's fantastic to be able to share these little insights that not everybody's maybe interested in, but some people definitely are. And it's great to be able to share that as an author.
Well, it's been a delight chatting with you. It's been a delight being part of the inside circle as well. I've seen this book developed and was so happy to see the final copy. LMG Wilson's book of Mists and Bogs is out now. You can get it online digitally. Look for it in your local bookstore. If they don't have it, ask for it and see if they can get it in. And look for Lisa also at events locally. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me. This was great.